Okay, welcome back to Thrive in the Future. I have Mike Thomas with Catholic Land Movement with me again. Welcome, Mike.
Hey Scott, nice to see you again. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Right at the beginning of Lent, getting ready. And yeah, no, feeling good.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you've had some really great posts and adventures here lately, so I wanted to have you on and talk about them. For folks who don't know what Catholic Land Movement is, give them a primer.
Well, yeah. So the Catholic Land Movement is a association of Catholic farmers, homesteaders, people who are interested in an increase of domestic production, or maybe just even thinking about the relationship between people, the landscape, economy, localism. And it's a network of kind of like support, peer-to-peer colloquial education, fellowship, um, an organization to help people. I should say the mission statement because it best captures it. The purpose of the Catholic Land Movement is the rural resettlement of Catholics onto productive property which they own. So
Hmm.
that's there's a lot in there, and I could tease it apart, but that's the work of the Catholic Land Movement. We help people start homesteads, make homesteads thrive, make small farms thrive. We are a network of Catholics supporting one another in a variety of capacity.
That's great. So you've had some, how many chapters do you have now? Because you just added two new chapters, right?
Yeah, yeah. Depending on how we count, it's either 35 or 33, depending on how we count. Because
Wow.
I always have like a chapter in, a couple people in the dugout, kind of swinging the bat, but not yet up to the plate. Getting
Hmm.
a little coaching. And then I always have like somebody kind of wavering that ready to retire. so
Right, right.
so we have that going on. We're big enough now that we have that going on at both ends all the time. And so yeah, no, I do an orientation or a follow up or a chapter consult every single night at 8 o'clock. So this
Wow.
slot is actually a relief because I just kind of get to talk with you and the good folks of your podcast, and then it's like see you later, But usually I'm in a coaching mode, or thinking I'm in a strategic way or a tactical way. How to help somebody cultivate more agrarian community, or next steps in their chapter development, or next steps in their personal development, whatever it is. So it's
Hmm.
that's every day at 8 o'clock I do a land movement phone call, and it's oftentimes chapter leaders.
Wow, that's great. How many people are in the average chapter, you think?
Some chapters are really big and some chapters are really tiny, and we just
Hmm.
started a new one in Rhode Island, and he hasn't even had a meeting yet, and there was like few people on his list because it's Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And then we have a chapter organization like in Wisconsin, where they divided all five dioceses of Wisconsin are going to have their own individual chapter. So it depends. Like each I kind of think of things per state because my contact is always the state contact. But within states, we might have multiple chapters. I'm going this coming weekend. I'm going to Pennsylvania, but it's the Southern Pennsylvania chapter, where there's a Northwestern Pennsylvania chapter, and maybe even Eastern Pennsylvania chapter eventually. So there's there's depending on the state, it could be well over 100 people, in the chapter, or 20 to 30, or five, or one
Right.
family who's looking for other people. It all depends on the place. There's no real. If I were to say there's a median, I guess it would probably be like 25, 30. I guess that would be the median. But seemingly,
Wow.
some places are a lot bigger than that.
Right. And everybody's skill sharing and learning new stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, usually it takes the shape, like, once a chapter gets rolling and going, it's like once a month, once every other month, folks get together and they'll either swap a skill or do a mutual aid project, or have a speaker come in and talk to them about keeping bees or canning, or I don't know, whatever else it is. And then we have these regional conference events where like a lot of people come together, and we have like several workshops in a single day there. um, And now we've added speaking events. So myself and my co-director are traveling around more now doing speaking events, talking
Hmm.
about Catholic social doctrine and the land movement. So talking about the motivating social teachings that make that propel the land movement into existence, and then talk about the land movement history and the contemporary. And so we've been actually traveling around. I've been traveling around doing that for hopefully we're going to have one engagement a month in a different state where we give this talk, and they're being very well received by not just laity but priests and the whole kind of Catholic family. It's and they're fun to give. I come in contact with, for chapter leads, I talk to a lot of them on the phone or like this in Zoom, and it's really great to like shake a hand, and say like, hey,
Hmm.
like, it's great to meet you in person. I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and so it's we're really on the cusp of like our next phase of growth, especially coming off the heels of our time in Rome in December.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, no, the land movement is my joy. It's a great love of my life, and um, so far, God willing, it's been very fruitful and successful for lots of people. So it's a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah. So tell a little bit about your trip to Rome. That sounded interesting.
Yeah, so we were our my local bishop got wind of Catholic land movement activity, and we kind of talked for a while, and it paired up with some programs that he was thinking about, and we've kind of become friends since then. So I've developed a nice relationship with my local bishop. He's a great man, um, and uh, and after a couple meetings, he was like, "Why don't you come to Rome with me and introduce this to in the Roman Curia? There's like these dicasteries that run different programs,
Hmm.
programming." And so he asked us to go with him and give a report to the dicastery of integrated human development, um, which carries some of Pope Francis's kind of social missions, into existence. And so we did. We went there. We spent a week in Rome, but we used that invitation, the opportunity of that invitation, as a lever to lift the land movement into a lot of other meetings with people. So we actually filled up an entire week, like multiple meetings every day, whether it was FSSP priests or Dominicans or people who run various institutes or a whole range of people in Rome. And so we ran around for a week, like meeting with everybody, just calling the land movement mission out from the streets, like literally in some cases. And so we had an amazing week. I've never been to Rome before. Um, yeah, I'm country boy. I have no right like traveling in a big airplane over the ocean to go to Rome, but there I was, and the real, I mean, I guess the culmination of the whole thing was that we did get a brief audience with the Pope. So
Really? Wow.
we got to shake the Pope's hand, and we gave him we gave him our folder with all of our stuff, and he looked through it and smiled. And one of our big hopes is that the original land movement had an apostolic blessing from
Hmm.
Pope Pius XII. And so one of our hopes, once you get an apostolic blessing, that's it. It's around forever. We are the inheritors of the land movement, right? The mission work is unchanged. So that mission statement I said to you before was the original mission statement of the land movement 100 years ago. And
Hmm.
so our hope, though, is we feel like we're carrying the mission work, but our hope is that the Pope and the hierarchy eventually gives us some type of letter or formal recognition that we still carry the apostolic blessing from Pope Pius XII. And I think we've made some headway there. But getting anybody in a vast hierarchy, huge thing like that to write a letter is a feat, but we have hope, and we have fortitude, and we have joy as we just kind of continue to plug away doing the land movement work. But we've made some great friends in Rome, and on our return, we had some very nice newspaper articles written about us, which then, of course, propelled the development of chapter networks and people's awareness of our work, to an
Hmm.
even higher degree. And so it's been real since I've gotten back from Rome. It's set in me like this is a calling that I've been asked to work on, and my wife and my family have seen that as well and say, okay, like we will give you every night at 8 o'clock on to make this happen.
Wow.
I put the little kids, help put the little kids to bed, and the big kids help clean up and kind of move on, and I do this.
Mhm.
So so yeah, so our commitment to the and not just my commitment, but kind of I think the vaster network feels the commitment like, wow, this thing is really working. It's getting big. People are paying attention to it. The chapters are very fruitful and productive. Let's all take it up a notch. And so that's what the past couple months have been is kind of more commitment, more energy, more work, and it's really coming together. It's really coming together, which is fun to watch.
Right. So is it a nonprofit now at this point, or?
Yeah, yeah, we are like an official 501(c)(3 stat.
Hmm,
We can
cool.
take donations. Please send us money. I promise we'll do good work with it. We actually I always like to say that like the land movement is going to persist in its work. We've been doing this for years with like barely two pennies to rub together and built it up to what it is now. We'll
Mhm.
continue to do that for another 100. It was around 100 years ago. It's around now. It's just this perennial kind of idea that is good, that is just going to reemerge no matter what. So we don't need money to do land movement stuff. But boy, if you gave it to us, would we know what to do with it? So there's my pitch to everyone listening. Please, send us $1 million. I promise you that the Land Movement Network would put it to good use. On that note, have seen some significant generosity over the last little bit, and so that always helps, right? So
Sure.
resources make more and more things possible, and so there have been some private donors that have been very, very generous, and so we've been able to do more with that, whether it's speaking tours or setting up more resources for chapters or building out the rubrics of organization and the programs that we run and stuff like that. So, and I suspect, given our working commitment, that hopefully that's going to increase, whether it's us learning how to run membership drives or whatever it is. None of us who are involved we're all organizers, we're all on fire for the work, but none of us are like nonprofit guys who, this isn't like we're just farmers and homesteaders and, craftsmen. And like,
Yeah.
we're pretty legit as far as like who we are. This is big professional nonprofit runners is not what we are, which gives the
Yeah.
land movement a great kind of colloquial flavor to it. It's a fun organization to be a part of.
Wow, that's great. That's excellent. So what big, so you've been to Rome, you've got a bunch more visibility. What big steps are you taking this year, or big projects are you taking on this year?
So the two biggest things is that we've or for me the two biggest things is, well, I guess I could say there's three big things. Is that we've had an idea of like a regional conference that moved around. There'd be like a bunch of different regions, and we're kind of changing that to, we're just going to have a very, very large national conference in the middle of the country in Indiana.
Hmm.
Um, and then we're going to have like 1 day conferences in all of the various regions. And then we might shift where that big conference is year to year to the different chapters to really get people, give everybody a turn to have like a 4 day event and see what that feels like for their community and everything else. So that's one big thing, is that there'll be a conference at the end of the summer in Indiana. All the details forthcoming so people can plan, but there's going to be a lot going on there. Hopefully we'll be able to draw a lot of people, and it'll be like the national land movement event,
Hmm.
I guess even international. So that's big. For me, lining up speaking tours. If you are Catholic and listening to this, we have lots of friends who are priests and deacons and who have been to our talks, and so I am once a month like traveling, and that's a big change in my life to like get on an airplane and fly somewhere and give a talk. Is a total change in kind of my rhythm. And it's big, but we find that as far as like chapter development, when one of us goes to a place and gives a talk, boom, we get like 2 or 3 chapters in that area. So
Hmm. Hmm.
so it's a great way to kind of seed the mission work. And so just ongoing chapter development is the next thing. And then hopefully by the end of the year, God willing, we will create some full-time staff positions, probably for myself and a couple other people, and begin to have some extra money for programming development, whether it's curriculums, um, a further development of like network lists or relationships with mission overlap organizations. There's only so many hours in the day, and even less when you start at 8 o'clock at night. So
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
if there's a if like I would bore you if I were to tell you all the things that we want to accomplish over the year, but the thing that's going to make it all possible is moving towards maybe a handful of people taking this on as full-time work, and that transition has kind of started. It might be a couple months before we fully get there, but that transition has begun for a few of us. And or just in different capacities for a few of us. Some of it's contract work, some of it's part-time, some of it's different things, but like we are putting into place the necessary kind of infrastructure to take this work to like a very fruitful and active next level. And so yeah, so those are the three big things for me in this year that I'm
Hmm.
excited about.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So the curriculum, you mean like homeschool curriculum?
One of the things I got invited to a conference, yeah, a year and a half ago in Oxford at the Laudato Si Institute, which is an encyclical. Laudato Si is an encyclical that Pope Francis wrote, and then they created this institute from it. And I was part of one of these. We have these synodal listening groups kind of thing, where like everyone sat at a table and they talked. And one of the things I really took away from that, and it's been rattling around in my mind, is that there's no coherent like all together curriculum for Catholics who want to engage like broad agrarianism that
Hmm.
integrates the intellectual themes and history, the practical techniques, and the liturgical life of the church, right?
Right.
So those three things actually integrate quite a bit, but there's no curriculum to guide, as you said, a homeschool group, a private school classroom, a group of seminary students, a land movement chapter, a college club, whatever it is. There's nothing that somebody could pick up that could guide them through how a curriculum for discovery around how Catholic liturgy and agrarianism are intertwined, and how that intertwines with the social teachings and doctrines of the church, and then
Hmm.
layer that with practical instructions on how to give workshops on various techniques, and of agriculture and land and handcrafts. And so creating something like that is something that it's been rattling around in my brain, but it needs some resources, needs some time to develop, but that's something that's in the works right now. I'm very excited about. Nobody, I think it's safe to say that as far as this idea of that integration of like, agrarian land and handcrafts in a Catholic ontology, nobody has given more workshops or talked more about it or organized around it more than the land movement. So we actually have this huge body of experience to draw from to build something out. It just needs some time. Some of the other things I want to do is create like, just basic organizer manuals for chapters. We have like basic documents, how to start a chapter, how to take your chapter to, the next phase, what to look for, the best practice, worst case kind of stuff. And we have some of those, but it's not formulated into like a nice manual, so I want to create that for our chapter leads. On and on and on. I could go for vision around curriculum kind of stuff, but there's quite a bit out there. I'm not really interested in like waxing poetically about agrarianism in a book and like selling it for money
Yeah.
or anything. I want to create manuals for action. I want to
Hmm.
create curriculums for education. Like these are the things that I don't care what public. I put it out for free on the internet is my attitude. That's what we want to do. We want to equip people with tools and resources so they can create a deeper level of integration of like Catholic life, the economic and domestic, productive domesticity in their community, like all integrated together. We want to give people the means, the tools, the knowledge base to make the networks to make that happen, to attack that type of development. And so yeah, I'm excited about it.
So if someone lives near one of your chapters and they want to move from city to get a homestead, how does the chapter or the Catholic land movement overall help them out
Yeah,
to
yes.
find a
So
homestead, find something, how's that process work for them?
yeah, that's a great question. So the intake from public interest that the land movement receives comes in two forms. And the third form is I'm a reporter, is you. I'm a reporter, I'm a podcast, and I want to talk with you. So that's the third form. But
Sure.
the majority is two. And one is I live in a parish, we got a couple families, we'd love to start a chapter. How do I do that? So that's one. And the other person is I'm all by myself. I read a couple books. I'm really into this. What do I do next? Where do I go? I think I want to move. I think I want to like move out to the country somewhere and buy a little farm. Where do I go? And so we divide those two intakes into two different categories, which is one chapter development, which goes to me. And I do the orientation and walk people through the rubrics of forming a chapter. And then there's the resettlement committee. And the resettlement committee, which has only been functioning about a year, takes people through like a questionnaire where they talk to them about their liturgical preference, their professional skills, their available resources, where they geographically want to live, climate, so on and so forth. Do you need to be near a city for your job? Do you not?
Hmm.
Whatever it is? And they help people find a good spot for them. And they've actually helped a fair number of people relocate. But
Really? Wow.
in order to do that, they need to also keep a repository of all the different community projects and community clusters, right? The Catholic cluster and new development project around St. Martin's, or the housing project in Wisconsin, or the folks around the monastery in Ava, Missouri, or the cluster in New Hampshire, or my little cluster in New York, right? All of these things have different flavors to them, liturgical, cultural, uh,
Mhm.
climate, you know.
Yeah.
Um, we need to know all these things, right? The guys out in California who are they're subdividing a large ranch, so there's all these different projects happening. Just keeping up with all of those projects and knowing what's going on with them and where they're at, and then the land movement is slowly finding itself in like a consulting position because we're watching all these things happen all over the world, and we're like, hey, watch out for this got these guys over here, don't let it get you. We're seeing, so it's interesting how that's starting to develop. But in
Hmm.
order to place somebody, you need to know all the places. So the resettlement committee does a pretty thorough survey of America, of all the places, and is constantly talking with them and stuff like that. I'm actually not on that committee, so I don't. I'm as the director of the joint committee or co-director of the joint committee. I listen to all the committee reports, but I don't actually really place people too much. I just send them to the resettlement committee, and I'm like, see you later. But when people want to form a chapter, that's me. So I lead up the fellowship and education committee, and so when people want to do that, that's me. And when people want to do PR stuff, that's me too. So I do a lot
Hmm.
of that. So yeah, so that's how the land movement's divided a bit and how resettlement works. Resettlement's only like a year old, so the committee is still in the process. I think it's pretty well developed now, but are still like in the process of like creating a white page of all the visions and all the facets of that mission work pillar. We have four pillars of mission work, and so resettlement is one of the pillars of what we do. Back to the single mission work statement, right? The Catholic land movement exists to facilitate the rural resettlement of Catholics onto productive property they own. If you break that down, there's a lot of work to do there, whether it's resettlement, making property productive, making sure they own it, making sure they're Catholic, like
Yeah.
there's a lot going on in that statement to break out. And we've broken it out into different committees that work on it.
Wow. That's pretty great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
really, really organized. I'm impressed.
There's a lot. Well, I work on it every single day, and so do a lot of other people. You know, you're talking to me, and I'm saying me, 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 me. But really, I am just the face for like a lot of other people who are working on this. So, so yeah, there's quite a lot of people who have given quite a lot of time, whether it's our chapter leads, every day, you know, what people teaching workshops, the priests who have us come in to give talks, the other people who are leading up committees, the people who donate IT time and like help us figure out website stuff and like everything else. You know, there's a lot. The land movement is a culmination of a lot of people's effort.
Hmm. That sounds great. Yeah, so last time we talked, we also talked about your orchard. So what's new in the orchard this year? Sorry, I went and went
Yeah,
to a
no,
different
no, no,
topic.
no, no, no. Hey, I can always talk about it. You're just you're just like Mike. Tell me about all the things you
Mike,
love.
Mike.
You know, you're talking about my kids and my wife next, and we'll just like cover them all. The you know the orchard was good. The orchard really took off. Last year was probably the most fruit we've ever seen.
Hmm.
And then this year, I topped a lot of trees that have really kind of robust. There's one variety in the orchard that has a very, very robust, like upright growth habit.
Hmm.
It is the Somerset Red Streak on M111 rootstock, and it
Oh
just
yeah.
has this great like it's the branches are just like you know just where some a lot of other trees you'll get a different kind of branch kind of out. These guys just like a million branches shooting straight for the sky, and so I topped them and pulled some of them down. So
Hmm.
to kind of slow that upright growth habit down a bit, and I've never this pruning season, I topped trees harder than I ever have. Like I topped these trees right on their center lead, like a whole like one third down from the top, you know, just whack. And so
Wow.
I haven't done anything that severe yet in my pruning, and so I'm interested to see how it, you know, how it works out. So we're still like in the pruning season right now. So that's it. I got cider froze solid this year before the ferment finished, and it's pretty much been frozen for a while now. We've had a very cold January and February here.
Yeah. You're in the Finger Lakes, right?
A little bit east of that, so it's even colder. The Finger
Uh-huh.
Lakes have like a unique microclimate where the bodies of water there hold some of the heat. We don't have that out here. It gets
Hmm.
cold. You know, we're more like, you know, prairie. um,
Yeah.
yeah, so we it's been very cold this year, which will probably lead to some attrition in the orchard. We'll see, you know, how bad. I have some pretty exposed spots that in the bad years the trees take a beating. But in any event, um, cider froze solid. So where I'm usually going into a bottle now, I'm not yet. I'm gonna have to stir everything up and let it settle once it, you know, defrosts, and then see if the ferment will kick back on, or you know, maybe I rack it. You know, I don't know. I gotta figure out what's gonna happen.
Hmm.
I always have a bit of frozen juice that I keep. Maybe I can start ferment in a smaller batch, and then if that can get really active, like, you know, inside at like a somewhat controlled temp, I can pour that in to kick back on the other batch. I don't know. I got to play with it, I guess. So as far as the fermentation and cellar arts, we'll see. Probably I'll just, you know, when everything defrosts, I'll clean out all the airlocks and just like let them keep fermenting. Maybe tap them down. I'd like take the airlock off and bottle it up to see if I can catch a little bit of you know, the end tails of the ferment, have the gases go back in. So we'll see what happens. I don't really know with the ferment and the cellar side of things this year. I'm later than I usually am for like racking and putting things in bottles, but it's just because everything froze.
Yeah, everything's froze. Yeah. So how
So
do
yeah.
you get the on your trees, how do you get them down? Do you use wire to get them down to more of a 45-degree angle?
To
The
my
branches?
state. Oh, no, no, no. The I've done everything from like zip tie, like weights to branches, to like staking in string. So just like taking a string and then stepping in a tent stake, into it just
Yep.
to pull it out and down. Those tend to like blow away. I wish I could say that I've weighted down more branches than I have. What I've really done is top the trees and
Hmm.
then intentionally left the remaining, like, maybe, I don't know, like, I want to say like, 2/3. Some of them, like, I've left some branches long in hopes that the fruit themselves in the next year will pull down the branches, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
Which that's happened before. So, and then create more of like a, growth habit, an umbrella or something. So,
Sure.
uh, so yeah,
So
so
are
that.
the is the Somerset red? Is that a red? Is that a red fleshed apple?
No, no, no. Somerset Red Streak. I don't know why they call it red. Well, I do know why they call it Red Streak. So Red Streak was, the Herefordshire Red Streak is like this legendary cider apple that I
Hmm.
think like Lord Scudamore himself like brought back from France or something. And so but apparently it like disappeared over
Hmm.
time. And so, from what I get, is some of the other, what they call vintage quality bittersweets, kind of come from that apple. And so the Somerset Red Streak, because Somerset's a different county in England, I think is just maybe like a child of the legendary Herefordshire Red Streak or something. But it's got, the original Red Streak had, I think, like red stridation on the outside of the apple, which is where it got its Red Streak name from. But it's just, there's this quality of like flavor profile in certain bittersweets that the English identify as vintage. And it's a very particular, like, oh, that's an English bittersweet cider apple. And so the Red Streak has that vintage quality. And so yeah, uh it's a it, it's a great apple. I like it. The only problem is that it's really early for my orchard. So it's really early and it gets really soft really fast. So
Hmm.
it doesn't keep well. So I often don't have enough in my orchard to blend a full barrel off the Red Streak. Last year I did. Last year I had enough Red Streak to like fill up a barrel with just Red Streak.
Really?
And
Wow.
yeah, and so that was that yeah, I filled up a couple. I think last year it was like 3.5 barrels I filled up only from fruit on my orchard. Like, I didn't go anywhere else to pick fruit. So, and that's the first time that's ever really happened like that. And with apple crop, it's like, the first year you get 2 apples, the next year you get 4 apples, the next year you get 16 apples, the next year you get 40 apples. It's like the growth is like that. So if I got 3 barrels this year, if God willing, we have a good fruit set, a nice springtime, a nice blossom, a nice fruit set. Boy, could I? There's potential I could have a lot of fruit this year. Or you could always have the year where it's too chilly and you don't get any fruit set. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
we
that's
had
it.
a late freeze a couple years ago, and we ended up with apples on one side of the tree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had this happen where the outside of the tree has got no apples, but there's like apples in the inside of the tree. Have you ever had that?
Hmm.
that's, that's happened to
No,
me. Yeah, it's like the cold got
not yet.
only so far in, and then it didn't get all the way in. But yeah, and
Yeah.
the other thing that's big on our farm right now is that we're in the middle of lambing season. So there's just like, lamb
Hmm.
avalanche. It's just like there's just lambs everywhere.
No, lamb pledge.
There's there's just lambs everywhere. So, which is always fun, you know. We don't do bottle babies anymore, so it's like it's just, they come and they go, but but there's a lot of lambs right now, so it's always fun. I saw like last weekend. I like Friday night. I just like took a drink down into the barn and just like sat there for an hour and just like watched the show because they're all like running around and playing with each other, and it's like fun. They're goofy. So
Yeah, that's hilarious. Wow,
Yeah,
lamb blanche. That's hilarious.
yeah, that's the other thing that's going on for us.
Yeah, I liked your post. So we're heading into Lent, and I liked your post the other day. It's time to use Lent to purify myself, to conquer my disorder and weakness, and to build a foundation. I thought that was well said.
Yeah, now's the time, right, brother? It's like I always, it's funny to say like I enjoy Lent, but I look forward to Lent as a time to challenge myself to, you know, I I think my early practice, I was really focused on what I was taking away. And now I understand that I use Lent to really build new habits now. And
Hmm.
so, like,
Hmm.
okay, I got 40 days. I've said I want to do this thing throughout the year, and I haven't been able to do it. I'm going to use Lent to really do it those 40 days. And if I do it those 40 days, it'll be a habit that I'll carry into the next year. So
Right.
that's a lot what this Lent is about for me. Is more just like like that tweet says, like burning off my disorder, but also building a foundation that I can carry into the rest of the year. Prayer
Yep.
life, whatever it is. There's a lot there that there's a lot in myself I'd like to make better, Scott. So now's my next 40 days to try and make it happen.
Yeah, I got to deal with my phone addiction, so I'll be uh, I'll be going silent running there on Twitter for a while.
Nice, nice. Well,
So
yeah, it's definitely something that all of us have to kind of like watch out for and negotiate. So yeah, cool. I wish you the best while you're gone. We'll miss you, but we'll see you, I'm sure, on the other side.
yeah, very good. Well, have a blessed Lent.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Okay.